Thank you so much, Matt, for talking to wefitnews.com. And since mental health is one such issue in the society, which not many people take it seriously, and we also wanted to understand the current government's focus on mental health. So I will get started. Very first question that on mental health, what do you think that how should a society get be aware about that? What should be the way to create an awareness in our society?
Oh, look, I think that's a very good question, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this morning to talk about, look, I think a very important issue for most Kiwis. And, we know mental health over time has been an issue that people have struggled to talk about. People have faced huge stigma and discrimination talking about their own mental health issues. And what we do know in New Zealand now that we have a culture where more people are open to talking about mental health, and they're more open to talking about their own needs and really wanting support. And, I do welcome that as New Zealand's first mental health minister. It is time that we give people more timely support, and what that looks like for each community of New Zealand could be potentially quite different. So we do know that there are some specific barriers to being open about mental health and reaching for support in different communities across the motu. So, one of my key focuses on mental health as New Zealand's first mental health minister is to raise the awareness of it and to make sure that people feel like there is support for them in their own community.
Right, right. Very well said, Matt. Thank you so much for that answer. Now, there's a stigma about mental health. If you notice in our society, so let's talk about the younger generation first. Okay. So, what do you think?
Sure.
At what age a parent should be aware, or a school society, school and administration should focus to educate our kids that there is something called mental health, and it can be in any form of mental health. So what do you think, what should be the age, or what should be the focus of our as a parent, as a school administration?
Yeah, look, I think that, there is always times to talk about better mental health, but I think to your point, it should be age appropriate. What we do know is younger people now have a vocabulary to talk about mental health than previous generations never had. They're more open to talking about it. They face less stigma or discrimination coming forward, and they're really looking for support to ensure that they have positive mental health. And when we think about mental health, it's not just the elimination of mental distress, it is the promotion of mental well-being. We want people to learn the skills and techniques of what keeps them mentally well, just like we learn about what keeps us physically well. And when you think about it like that, there's a real opportunity in our schools. Our young people are asking for more support in mental health in schools, but also the education. They want to learn the tools and techniques of ensuring that you have better well-being. And there is programs that the government is funding, not only in high schools, but in primary schools as well. I think of Sir John Kirwan's Mighty program that gets rolled out in primary schools, the government's Mane Ake program as well. And when you think about it, positive mental health, a big part of it is just being aware of your emotions and being able to manage them. And I think that is, as a parent, probably a good skill for all our young people in New Zealand to learn.
Absolutely, and I like the term which you use. Mental health, well-being. So I really, I want to use that term, throughout our conversation, because mental health, well-being is something which we should be referring to rather than talking about, mental health. So moving on, I wanted to understand from you, when you joined, when you taken over this position, what did you realize? What was lacking in previous, Labour government, which National is prioritizing?
Yeah, well, I think, the first priority for mental health was establishing New Zealand's first mental health minister, and I'm really privileged to be in that position, although having a job title doesn't necessarily make a difference on the ground. So to your point, we need to be very clear about what our plan is. And look, when I travel around the country, I talk to a lot of people who say in their time of mental health need, they found a system that was quite fragmented, just took too long to be seen. So we're joining up the system and really prioritising people to get faster access to support. So I brought in 5 government targets for mental health, 3 of them around access, 1 week for primary mental health and addiction support, 3 weeks for specialist mental health and addiction support. And that's the way we can measure the performance of the system, hold me to account as mental health minister, but ultimately ensure that people who in their time of need reach out, they are getting timely support, because I think we all agree with mental health, being stuck on a wait list is a big red flag. So we want to focus on ensuring that when people reach out, that support's there. And I think one of the key barriers to that is too many workforce vacancy rates. So we published New Zealand's first mental health and addiction workforce plan, and we're working at pace to ensure that we grow the pipeline of mental health workers in New Zealand.
Perfectly. And nice to know that, national government has good planning on covering. So now I wanted to start with the very basic one, in terms of awareness. So what is that, national government is doing to create awareness in the society, which was lacking before, and what kind of response you are getting?
Yeah, it's a good question. So look, not only do we want to treat people with mental illness, support people a lot earlier in a time of distress, but also promote mental well-being to ensure people stay well and don't get into distress or crisis needing treatment. And one way we do that is ensuring we educate people and promote them to understand the tools and techniques they can implement in their daily life to keep them well. So I recently launched New Zealand's first national ongoing mental health promotion campaign. And it's around topping up your mental meter. And that is really about the 5 ways of wellbeing. It's an evidence-based program. If you can implement that in your daily life, it's about connecting, continually learning, being active, taking notice and giving back. And that's evidence-based, that if you implement those 5 things in your life every day, that you'll promote your own well-being as well. So we're really interested in promoting that national campaign. It's not only done across multimedia and a range of publications, but also we're working with grassroots organisation through a community fund approach that where communities feel like they can apply that program in what might be a regional or a cultural context to ensure that we get greater cut through.
Right. And since you said that you guys have started this mental healthness, program, so what is the best way a person, himself or herself find out that, hey, you know what, I need a help? So what is the best way to reach out or seek for a help?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I suppose for me, telehealth is always an opportunity for people that might be picking up the phone or talking to someone online. The government funds a number of telehealth providers to provide real-time support. So if you think for young people, they can text, call or chat with Youthline to ensure they get age-appropriate mental health and wellbeing support. And for adults, 1737, you can call 1737 and talk to a mental health trained counsellor 24/7, as well as the Access and Choice program where people can see a mental health professional in their GP clinic. And that's a free support in people's GP clinics. So there's a range of free support out there, and I would encourage people to reach out. And I think, if anyone, there was one thing to remember from today's discussions is that in a time of need, just call 1737 and they'll support you. And if you need further support, they'll connect you with the local service available to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. And the purpose of this conversation itself is, to create awareness. And the number, I'll make sure that when we are, publishing this video, we'll make sure that this number is flashing on the screen.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely. And while I was working out, I noted a couple of things which I wanted to understand, and ask you. So will you be able to share a story that has personally stayed with you during your work in mental health?
Yeah, I think of one initiative we're rolling out. So, peer support lived experience workers. They're people who have their own lived experience of being in the mental health system, mental health issues. And years ago, people who would have engaged services would have been quite stigmatised, and it was done quietly. People didn't openly talk about it, for fear of being judged by others. But now in a more open society where there's less stigma and discrimination, people who have their own issues and have sought help have a real opportunity to help others going through the system as well. So we're rolling out peer support lived experience workers in our emergency departments across the country. And, that's for people in a time of distress. When they go into the emergency department, they'll be greeted by someone who's been there before and knows what it's like. And when we rolled out and launched the new service in Wellington Hospital Emergency Department, one of the workers told me quite candidly it was quite a surreal moment, because only a few years ago she was the one coming through the emergency department in a mental health crisis. And now that she's in recovery and has done some training, she's actually the person supporting others who come in a time of crisis. And I think that's quite powerful, to get alongside someone, not necessarily tell them what to do, but just share your own personal story that there is hope and light at the end of the tunnel.
Perfect. And that is something, if you give a personal touch to anything, that makes a lot of effect on people's life. Yeah. And that's what WebFit News has launched this this initiative, that we should be the one who should be making people aware. And if we can help at least minimum 5 people, then it will be a good win for both the side.
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you so
that's
much.
great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, how do you personally manage balance, and mental well-being while leading in such a demanding role?
Yeah, look, I think most Kiwis work pretty hard. We're a hard-working country, and we don't always get it right around our work-life balance. I think it is about having awareness of when maybe your work-life balance is not as balanced as you would like, and being aware of that, looking for your own sort of triggers or symptoms or signals or signs of potentially burnout, or getting a bit more stressed than you should, and being able to recognise that, and then just have strategies of getting back into balance as well. And everyone's different about what supports us to de-stress. I have young kids, so I like just hanging out with them, not doing anything terribly prescribed, just they can decide what to do for the afternoon, and just forget about work and switch off. Also, I live in North Canterbury, where we have some lovely beaches and coastline. I can take the dog for a walk and things like that. So I think the main thing, and people are becoming more aware of it, they know that actually they do need to have a good work-life balance, eat well and sleep well as well. And again, going back to those 5 ways of well-being, that's a good way of supporting each individual's well-being. Because if you look at the 5 principles of connecting, learning, being active, taking notice and giving back, for each of those, every Kiwi will have a different interpretation of what that is. Connecting might be calling a mate, or calling your mum, or just going down and engaging in your local church group. And it's just working out what works for you, really. And I do think there's an opportunity now, with the conversations we're having in New Zealand, that we can support people staying well.
Definitely. And I like the fact which you spoke about, a very basic one. Just take a walk with your dog, with your
Yeah.
pet, and, play with your kids, and then eat well, sleep well. So these are very basic hygienic things which anybody can follow. And I'm sure there will be some, amazing results. But Matt, if we talk about the society, right, there are different groups of people. There are people like you and me who are staying with the family, and there are people who are, not separated, staying away from the family, or maybe a single parent. So that
Mm.
is something I think which becomes challenge. Yeah. So what do you have to say about it? What should be the a main motivative way to stay mentally healthy?
Yeah, it's a good point. And when people are isolated or disconnected, it can be quite challenging
Right.
with being outside their normal network system, and some of that can be a result of mental illness. Classically, as people get further into their mental illness, they can disconnect and withdraw and isolate as well, and that is concerning, and we need to reach out to people and support them. Plus, there is also normal parts of our life course where we do put ourselves in that position. You think about when we travel, potentially move to a new country, maybe we move between cities in our home country for a new job, or when you leave school and go on to become a young adult and make adult relationships for the first time. So, I'm always the view that life is about different stages. So it is ensuring that we do keep connected. Some of it is around ensuring that we are active and engage in hobbies and interests that connects us to like-minded people. And there is now, with technology, a big opportunity to stay a lot more connected online, and to ensure that we continue our relationships by talking to people. And I think online also provides an opportunity for people to access mental health and healthcare services, even for some people living in the most isolated parts of New Zealand, where their local GP might be a 1-hour drive, so they can jump online and do an online consult as well. So there is real challenges in New Zealand, as we are a sparsely populated country, but I think there's huge opportunities as well.
Exactly. And what I take out from this conversation, this part of the conversation is, if there's a will, there's a way to do that.
Yes, yeah, very
Exactly.
much so.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for that. Now, moving on, what are the signs of burnout that leaders and families should never ignore?
Yeah, it is interesting, and some of it will be personal to the individual, but classically, burnout can be around someone appearing tired all the time. Also, people who are not present in the moment, who are quite preoccupied about other things in their life, not sleeping well, not eating well, and not engaging in good, healthy relationships. And that can all signal burnout. We do know there's a crossover with increased alcohol use, potentially, drug use or other risky behaviours as well. And it just comes down to someone who knows the individual can sense that there's been a shift, and maybe that might be driven by things in their life that are preoccupying them and resulting in the increased stress. So it's just being aware of the individual, and if there is any changes, and quite often it is around people withdrawing and someone not connecting as much as they do, and that just gives it a good opportunity for us as family or friends or community members to reach out to that person and check in with them.
Wonderful, wonderful answer. Now, if since I talked about the leadership, how can a leadership at every level make well-being a daily priority instead of one-day campaign?
Yeah, it's a good point. And actually, when you take a step back, what we do know is, if you have a mentally well workforce, increased productivity, you see sickness days reduced, you see things like presenteeism, which is people at work but not actually performing. And there is a real opportunity to think about it as an investment. By investing into the well-being of your workforce, you're actually getting a better productivity out. People stay longer in their job, there's higher retention, less burnout, and less time focused on issues that you're managing that might be resulting in people not being focused on their job as well. So it should be a prioritise of any business, because it's actually a vested interest that they will get a better return on their workforce as well. But it's also led by the workforce and employees. Quite a lot of young people now do ask questions in their interviews about what does your organisation do about work-life balance? What policies have you got in place that I can support things like EAP, employee assistance programs, other health care entitlements, and other flexible working arrangements. So that's why I think it is a win-win, really. and it's a good opportunity as we learn more about well-being in the workplace and supporting that. So actually, it's better for the individuals as a whole.
Right. And since you talked about employee and the employer, so do you think that if there is individual getting not being well treated in terms of mental well-being, so is there any way that the person can report to the government and action can be taken?
Yeah, well, most programs now invest in what's called EAP, Employee Assistance Programs, where you can access support anonymously and independent of the organisation as well. And I think that's important. I think it's important that people stay well, and that gives an ability for people to raise any concerns they have.
Definitely. And I feel, New Zealand is one country where that has been taken care very well by most of the employers, because
Mm,
I feel once you have completed your hours, nobody bothers you. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely, Now, let's focus on a little bit more on the school and the youth network. Now, how a school and youth network and local organization help improving the mental health literacy?
Yeah, well, most young people at schools are wanting more mental health education. And to your point, the literacy around mental health and well-being. And so I suppose it gives us a real opportunity, not just about wrapping around support for someone who's feeling distressed, but actually, preventively and early intervention. What skills can we teach our young people in school that helps them navigate the world, really, when you think about the pressures of leaving school and potentially going to university, leaving home, financial pressure, and the pressure on getting good grades at university and getting a good job. It just bodes well to ensure that our young people are prepared for those stresses and to accept that they're normal parts of life, but actually the skills you can implement to support you navigating those pressures in your life.
Exactly. And if we nurture our upcoming generations, obviously, the future is going to be bright and that should be focused from every angle. And that's the reason WebFit News has started this initiative. Now we are moving towards the last section of our conversation. And I wanted to ask a question on the future vision. Okay. So what are the next steps or upcoming goals for expanding access to mental health support across New Zealand?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we want to do is ensure that people have timely access to support, whether that be through primary care or our specialist services, and that's why we introduced those wait time targets, as well as building out a better crisis response. It's not necessarily a mental health illness, but people do get into distress and crisis. Quite often people call 111 and they either don't get a response, or if they do, it might be a police officer, which is not always the best response in a time of a mental health need. So we're building out what's called a mental health co-response team approach across the country that'll pair up mental health professionals with our police.
Mm-hmm.
So in a time of need, you'll call 111, you'll get assessed by mental health professionals in the dispatch centre. Potentially a mental health co-response team will be dispatched to come out to you, and if needed, you'll be taken to a support service that's appropriate to your needs as well, which might keep you away from hospital and emergency departments, but are not always the best place for you to go to in a time of mental distress. So I'm really excited about the build out of that in New Zealand. That will be quite a game changer on how we respond to mental distress, and I think it'll be something we can be really proud of as a country.
Definitely. And I wanted to focus on one area, which is a migrant category. I myself have, immigrated, migrated from India. So I see, being thousands of miles away from, our home country when you land here. And if you have no one to talk about, then that is where I think it gets started, because I have seen, young age and people on any age, getting affected out of it. So I'm sure,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Matt, having a conversation and finding out way to having a conversation and speaking about it, there shouldn't be any shame on it, and people should not be bothered, or people should not stay away from talking about it. that's how we can, help. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think it's a good area to raise, and
right.
we are mindful that there is increased distress and mental health issues in our migrant communities,
Yeah,
and that can be stemmed by a range of things, as you say, the disconnection from potentially their birth country, family and friends, the pressures of moving to a new country, also potentially facing racism, stigma and discrimination that's caused by that, and so what we need to do is ensure that we have culturally appropriate support in New Zealand. I work quite closely with Kelly Feng from Asian Family Services. We recently announced some new Asian mental health services to be rolled out that will be more culturally appropriate with appropriate language for the person to engage in, and a support system that is more reflective of their cultural values as well. And I think in New Zealand, mental health is important, and how that looks in different communities can be quite different as well. And that's why we're really keen to work with local communities to understand their needs and how we provide culturally appropriate support to them as well.
Right. And the reason why I talked about, this migrant category is like, everybody has three different kind of pressures. Like you have to also do the job, you have to take care of the house. At the same time, you have kids to manage. So that, it develops very fast. And that is the reason, I spoke about it. But yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much, the input which you gave. Now, moving on, how can continuity and accountability be ensured so that the progress lasts beyond a single term or campaign?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to have long-term policy settings irrespective of the three-year parliamentary cycles. So I set up with Chloe Swarbrick from the Greens, Lewis Wall from Labour at the time, New Zealand Parliament's first mental health cross-party group to do exactly that, take a bipartisan approach. If we can agree on some long-term policy settings, then the view is the change of government potentially every 3 years won't interrupt that long-term planning. And I work closely with that cross-party group to ensure that we are lined up in a bipartisan manner.
Right, right. And I'm very happy to hear that you are doing a cross-party collaboration on that. So, which is a good, move from national government. Thank you so much for that. Now, I wanted to know about your, again, a future vision that what change would you, most like to see in next 5 years regarding how our nation views and respond to the mental health?
Yeah, well, I want to further grow mental health awareness and education in the country, support the further reduction in stigma and discrimination around mental health, but ultimately live in a country where there is a guaranteed level of service, meaning 1 week access to primary mental health and addiction support, 3 week access for specialists, and to ensure that all New Zealanders can expect that. We're meeting those targets at a national average, but I've always said I'm not happy with that, because what I want to do is go into the detail of the data and look where groups are not achieving that level of service. Some smaller towns in New Zealand, maybe some population groups as well, to ensure what are the barriers to them getting that timely support. And then we'll get rid of what we call that postcode lottery in health to ensure everyone has that equal opportunity with health in New Zealand.
Right, right. So equal opportunity is something which I feel is well treated in this country, and which I appreciate to the government and the kind of initiative you guys have taken. Now, the last question which I wanted to know, if you could share one message with every New Zealander about mental health and well-being, what would it be?
Oh, look, I think that we should actually acknowledge how far we've come as a country. I think we've done very well breaking down the barriers of stigma and discrimination. We've got a huge opportunity here as we have a younger generation coming through who are more open to talking about their mental health needs. But what we must be mindful of, as more people take that leap of faith, asking for help, we need to ensure that support's in place. And I think that's the next step for the country, and the next challenge in mental health, that we make sure that we have that timely support, so it doesn't matter where you live in the country. In a time of need, you've got someone to call, someone to respond, and somewhere to go.
Right, very well said. Thank you so much for that. Now, how we as a media group can help you, Matt, to increase this awareness?
Yeah, well, I think just interviews like this, just keeping the conversation going. You obviously have your target audience that will follow you closely, and ensuring that we get the message out there into all the communities of New Zealand. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity today. I've really enjoyed the interview, and well done. And anything I can support WebFit going forward and spreading the word about better mental health within the communities you serve, I'm more than happy to help you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And I want to appreciate for your team, who have responded very nicely, and the kind of, appointment was given very nicely. So I appreciate for that. Yeah. And right now, Indian community is celebrating Diwali. So do you want to just give a happy Diwali message to them from our Wefit News channel?
Yeah, I want to wish everyone a happy Diwali, and just to say I'll be at the local Diwali event in Christchurch on Saturday night. I know it's always a huge opportunity to enjoy the culture, the people, and the experiences as well. I'll be taking my young kids along to the event because I know it's a family-friendly event, and it's a huge opportunity to not only celebrate the cultures in New Zealand, but to show that we can all come together as one in a country where we actually respect and celebrate diversity and all the different cultures, which makes New Zealand a great place to live in.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And we will be publishing this on our news channel. And definitely we will be, asking for the feedback and message to the viewers. Please feel free to reach out directly. Or if you want to ask any question, you can leave it in the comment section, and we can certainly reach out to the Matt departments and we'll try to get the answer. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Honorable Matt, for talking to us, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye. Bye.